Everyone, allow me to start by wishing peace in our hearts. Wherever we go, that is one of the most sought subjects, the power of forgiveness. I wonder why. Why is it that it's so hard to forgive people? And one of the biggest challenge in forgiving others, it's because we have a misconception of what forgiveness is. But if there was someone that truly understood the power of forgiveness, was a man who fought for equal rights. He lived in a country in which, due to the color of your skin, you were segregated. Under that rule, there were beaches for white and for blacks, public transportation for white and for blacks. Even the bus stop were segregated. Now imagine we men have done an excellent job in abusing women over history. Just imagine how detrimental to your well-being was to be a woman and being black. Under this regime, if you were a very rich black man, you couldn't have a white man as your employee. But being white, you could have many black employees as you needed. Under this regime, hospitals were segregated. Black hospitals and white hospitals. The educational system was segregated for blacks and for white. And any kind of social services in which you serve the minority and then you have other services to serve the majority, the less people you have, the better quality of service you can provide. Just for the simple fact that you are providing more service to less people. Because the whites were a minority in this country. So this man, by being a lawyer, he stood up and said, you know what, we cannot take this any longer. We have become slaves of these foreign masters. We are not looking for the superiority of the blacks over whites. What we're looking for is equality for all. And he fought very hard, and unfortunately, he was imprisoned. His sentence was supposed to be capital punishment, but then they gave him life in prison. Now, if in community, if in society, there was segregation, just imagine the kind of segregation you had in the jail system. He went to Robben Island, and he was entitled one letter every 6 months. And this wasn't a modern prison where some of them can look like a 5-star hotel, depending with what you compare. This was a prison in an island. So in his room, there was no bathroom. He had to attend to his physical needs in a bucket. And on the following day, clean the bucket. No regular beds either. What you had was linens on top of linens to make the floor more comfortable. He had a chair without a phone. This is not a reclining $5,000 chair. This was a chair made of wood. No running water either inside that cell. You could almost stretch your arms and touch both sides of the cell. That's how tiny this cell was. But he thought to himself, when you are right, and even if you are a minority of one, you're still on the right side. So he held very tight to his ideal of a just society. Whenever people went to Robben Island, this man would take his time to educate the individual. So whenever that prisoner left, it was someone educated for society to fight for equal rights. And it got into a point that the world, in order to press pressure over this particular country, they established embargoes. What are embargoes? Is when you don't buy a product from a country and now their economy goes down because the world saw that was very unfair what they're doing. Which country are we talking about? South Africa. The regime, apartheid. The man, Nelson Mandela. He had so much influence that some started to call Staten Island, the prison that he was at, Robben Island, Nelson's Mandela University, because prisoners went there and they were enlightened by Nelson Mandela. So early in the 1990s, poets started to write poetry about Nelson Mandela, free Nelson Mandela. Then musicians came up with songs to free Nelson Mandela. So the government received so much pressure that they had to free Nelson Mandela. So in February 27th of 1991, the cameras from all over the world was pointing at the entrance of the prison that he was at. So he walked to a completely new country after 27 years of being imprisoned under those harsh conditions just because he wanted equal rights for all. Now, there were some civil commotion for a while, and with just one word of Nelson Mandela, the blacks will rise to power and crush the whites because they were the minority. But Nelson Mandela used to say, when you know how to work with your enemies, they cease become your enemies and now they are your friends. We need to leave a legacy to the world, the legacy of forgiveness. And because he chose to forgive and work with the very people who was responsible for wasting 27 years of his life, he went around the world in different universities collecting diplomas for his achievements. And then back in 1993, he became the first black president of his country through democratic election. So in his speeches, he used to say, in my country, first, you go to prison, then you become the president. And he called his country the Rainbow Nation because everyone had to be included. Why he was capable of doing such a wonderful thing? That's because Nelson Mandela understood what forgiveness is. He established these places called Truth Reconciliation, where people will come and discuss what they went through during apartheid. So people will get these strong emotions off their chest so they could be able to work on as a country. So as far as we can go in the future and flip the pages of our history books, we will always remember Nelson Mandela with great joy because such a being stepped foot on this planet. And that's because he chose forgiveness instead of retaliation. If he had come out and abolished the people who were there and exile everyone who was not his color from his country, he would just be another human being quickly forgotten in history. But because he chose otherwise, he will be remembered forever with love. So what is forgiveness? At times, to understand a concept, it's easier to explain what is not, the antonym, the opposite of that concept. So before we discuss what forgiveness is, let's make very clear what forgiveness is not. Because that's where the misconfusion begins and people don't allow themselves to forgive someone that they hold grudges against. First thing, number one, forgiveness is not to condone a behavior. When you forgive someone, you're not applauding what they did. You're not saying what you did is right. You're not stimulating the individual to continue with bad behavior. If someone stole from you, you're not in agreement with that individual. If someone betrayed you, you're not agreeing with that individual. You're not condoning the behavior. You're not applauding. You're not telling the individual, go ahead and keep doing what you're doing. So forgiveness is not to condone. Number two, forgiveness is not to absolve. A lot of people won't forgive others because they believe that by forgiving someone, you are absolving them from what they have done to you. If you've seen a movie in which people, they feel they are full of sins, they go to a church and the priest will make the sign of the cross and he will be saying the following words: I absolve you, I absolve you, meaning I am cleaning you from your sins. Well, we Spiritists, we respect all religions that have the aim to better people, yet we don't agree with that concept because we don't have the power to absolve someone from their mistakes. And why is that? Well, that's because when we harm someone else, we are actually harming ourselves. When we do something bad to someone, it's a moral debt that we have acquired. Here in the Spiritist philosophy, we learn the concept of action and reaction, cause and effect. We sow and then we must reap. We reap what we sow. What goes around comes around. These are concepts, they are very clearly explained in Spiritism. And what does that mean? It means that we have the free will to sow anything that we want. We can sow seeds of orange, seeds of tomato. We can sow lettuce and potatoes. But we can only reap what we have sown. If I sow seeds of orange, it is impossible for me to reap an apple. I don't have to like this concept. I don't have to accept it. I don't have to understand it, but that's how life is. When we plant oranges, all I can reap are oranges. This is the law of life. And what this has to do with anything? Well, that's because our actions are seeds in the soil of life. So when I do something bad to someone else, I am planting a seed for myself. The individual that I have harmed could say to me, well, I forgive what you did to me. I fully pardon the mistakes that you have done against me. That does not free me from the consequences of my actions. Because when I did something to that person, I planted the seed for myself. So if I forgive someone, I am not absolving the person from the consequences of their actions. One good strategy to make the concept very clear is to tell a story. And let's say there is this individual. and it's his birthday, and he invites 200 people for his birthday. So everyone is there having fun, dancing, eating, and drinking. And amongst those 200 people, there is one individual that is doing an inventory. He or she is walking around the house looking for something to steal. So they find $1,000, they put that $1,000 in their pocket, and then they go home. 3 hours later, the party's over, and now the birthday person will start cleaning up the house, and he will find out that someone took his $1,000. So what's his first impulse? Well, let me call the police. And then while he's dialing 911, he says to himself, what a waste of my time. There were 200 people here. They will never find out who took my money. So the individual hangs up the phone. So now I, the thief, I am guaranteed of one thing. I am not going to jail. And why? Because he never bothered to call the cops. And then the birthday person, he sits and he thinks to himself, now, who in the world took my money? This is incredible. I invited the thief to my home. This individual, I probably hugged him when he came in. He ate from my food. He savored my beverages. He had so much time with the dancing. I hired an excellent DJ, and this guy had the audacity to in his mind. And you know what? I had so many gifts this birthday party. People came in, they were happy, they greeted me, and they brought me a lot of gifts. I'm really happy tonight. So I will not allow this incident to take my happiness away. So whoever did this, I will forgive him. Now I, the thief, I'm guaranteed of two things. I'm not going to jail, and I was even forgiven of my crime. And because I was forgiven of my crime, I go on with my life thinking I got away with this. But remember, if I do something bad to someone, I planted the seed for myself. So 3 months go by, 6 months go by, a year goes by, and I think I got away with this, and these things have nothing to do with time. So one day I'm driving my car, then there is snow, I lose control of my car, I hit the pole, and now I cause my car some damage. I take the car to get fixed. Guess how much it's going to cost me to repair my car? $1,000. When that moment comes, then here comes the denial or the projection. I will find all sorts of excuse to blame others for that accident because I think it's just bad luck. I will probably blame the meteorologist for never giving me the information. Well, I was not even in tune with the Weather Channel. I will probably blame my friend who called me. I would say to myself, if I was home, this accident wouldn't happen. I'm looking for someone to blame, except seeing that I am the one who caused that situation for myself. There are no bad luck in life. All there are the reactions of our actions. So since I have done something negative, I am now reaping the effects of my negative actions. Some people might argue, well, why is it negative? Well, okay, since in the Spiritist philosophy, we do not tell anyone to accept what we say, but rationalize, think for themselves. How can we determine if what I'm about to do is negative or positive? Well, I simply ask myself the question, if what I am about to do was done to me, would I appreciate it? Would I like someone to steal $1,000 away from me? Absolutely not. Therefore, if I do it, it's negative. Very simple. The measure is in us. If we wouldn't like someone to do that to us, it means what we're doing, it's negative. If I would appreciate someone doing to me what I'm about to do to someone else, then it's positive. We are the measure of the pain in other people. when it comes to the dynamics of the action and reaction. So that moment is, we label as bad luck, when in reality it's just the reaction of my action. So if I forgive someone, I am not absolving that individual from the consequences of their actions. Because we have the sense of justice in us. And when someone does wrong, we want justice to be done. And it will be done by life, not by our own hands. Because when we seek to do justice with our own hands, then we are lowering them ourselves to their level. And now we have done something negative. I am not advocating that if you find someone who stole money from you, that you shouldn't report to the police. You should. And reason being, it's because that individual who stole from you could be addicted. It's called kleptomania, the addiction of stealing. And if they got away with stealing $1,000, maybe the next time they will steal $5,000. Then they will rob a bank, and with armed robbery. If you report them by stealing your $1,000, they might go to jail. Get the consequences and understand that this shouldn't be done. They shouldn't continue on this behavior, because by being in jail and seeing what jail looks like, they might arrive at the conclusion, if I continue with this behavior, I wouldn't be here for 3 months. I'll probably get a sentence of 15 years. And I don't want to stay 15 years in a place like this. This is why we have police and the justice system. When it comes to forgive someone, it's what goes on in our heart. Because other people might conclude that we're advocating to forgive a thief. Don't report to the police ever. That's not what we are advocating. We forgive someone, we're not absolving them. Because a thief that you don't know who it is, he could be in Japan right now. How can you do that? How can you seek justice when the individual is in Japan, or you don't even know who that person is? Well, with your forgiveness, that individual still have to reestablish justice by going through the pain of what you went through. Now, also, let us be very clear that when someone goes through the reaction of what they have done to you, this is not God punishing them for doing something wrong to you. Because a loving father does not punish children to learn. The pain that we go through as a result of the reaction of our own actions is a means to learn. We either choose the path of love or the path of pain to learn. What would be the path of love? By understanding that what I'm about to do, I wouldn't appreciate if someone did to me. So my own consciousness tells me, don't do it. We see in movies, a mother or father let us know, don't steal, don't these negative things. If I become stubborn and I don't listen, then here comes pain to teach me exactly what love was trying to convey. So pain is nothing but a way to open up our eyes so we can see what we have done. It's actually a great nurse that assists us in getting better. Therefore, with your forgiveness, you will not be absolving that individual from the reactions of their actions. Forgiveness is not, and this is number 3, to forget. We confuse forgiveness with forgetfulness. That will be the equivalent. When you forgive someone, you are actually developing Alzheimer's. That does not make any sense. If to forgive is to forget, you must develop a neurological disease. The communications between the neurons, they have to cease. The myelin sheet, which makes communication between neurons possible and faster, have to disappear. That's what happens with people with Alzheimer's. in order for you to forgive someone. See, our brain was made to store information. If you forget who you are, you cease to become you. If you have been with someone that has a relative who have been treated for Alzheimer's or have Alzheimer's, it's a terrible thing when they start to forget relatives. And eventually they forget the caregiver. And then they forget who they are. And they cease to exist in that sense. Well, that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is not to forget. Having said that, let's discuss how powerful memories are to us. When you remember something that happened to you, your brain cannot distinguish what is memory from a current situation. Scientists, neuroscientists, they did the following experiment. They connected an individual with an electrical encephalogram to measure the brain waves of these individuals to see what happens when they are thinking of something and they're actually seeing something. So what they did, they told this individual, close your eyes, and we're going to place a chair in front of you and look at that chair. So while the subject was looking at the chair, a specific brain wave pattern came on the monitor. This was the representation of his observation of the chair. Now they stopped the experiment and said, let's do part number 2. Let's remove the chair, and now we want you to close your eyes. And we want you to think of the chair. And before scientists make experiment, they make hypotheses of what can happen as a result of an experiment. And as you can imagine, because this was a different experiment, the chair was not there. Their eyes are closed and they're thinking about the chair. They presumed that the wave that will come in the monitor will be either smaller or much larger than the original wave. But for their surprise, the same kind of wave came in the monitor. They were baffled because this was scientific evidence that our brains cannot distinguish our current scenario from a thought that we're having. This concept has gigantic implications with the topic of forgiveness. And why is that? Well, that's because when you remember something, to your brain, you're actually experiencing again. So let's say that the year is 2008, March 11. And someone came to you, said some nasty words, and they actually hit your face. Now, I apologize for the violence. It's because the people I deal with, I see lots of violence every day. And to make the example easier to understand, it must be something of physical in nature. So the person came to you, an altercation started. They say something very negative, very detrimental to your character, and then they punched your face. Now, it's March 12th of the year 2008. One day went by, and then you're sitting at home and you're saying to yourself, how dared he? I can't believe he said these things to me. And then he punched my face. At that moment, you relived the moment. You relived the experience. Now it's March 13th of 2008. 2 days went by, and you are full of grudges. I can't believe he hit me in my face. And he said these things to me. He humiliated me in front of my friends. Now, it's March 18th of the year 2008. A whole week went by, and we're sitting there thinking about the punch we received. Now it's March 11 of the year 2009. 364.25 days went by, and every day we're holding on to the grudge. We're feeling resentful. I can't believe this individual did this to me. He punched my face. And now it's the year 2013. 5 years went by, and we're holding to that grudge, to that resentfulness. We're thinking all of the details that happened. The shirt that he was dressing, the pants that he was wearing, the temperature in the room, the nasty words that came out of his mouth, the people around him, and the punch that came directly on our left cheek. Now, 5 times 365, you know already approximately how many days? More than 1600. Then it's March 11 of the year 2018. 10 years went by, and here I am thinking every day of that punch in my face. The question is, how many times have the individual punched your face? Once. That individual just gave you one punch. How many times have we punched ourselves? That's when you multiply 10 times 365. That boils down to 3,650 punches on our face. By not forgiving, we are re-punching ourselves over and over again. People who don't forgive, all they're doing, they are re-harming themselves. This is why we describe this incident with the word resentfulness. That's the prefix, it means to do something over again. Sent comes from the root of feelings, to feel. So resentful, it means to feel it again. So I'm feeling the pain over and over again. Now, is that a wise thing to do? Absolutely not. I am re-harming myself over and over again. So who has control of you? Is it you or the person you are allowing to control you in your thoughts? The other individual. When Oprah Winfrey had her show, she had a guest that one day her car broke down. And this individual stopped, and that person beat this woman up, left her to the woods to die. So the man thought that she was dead, and he stole the car, and she was left in the woods. She managed to crawl out of the woods, all the way up to the road. And someone stopped, took her to the hospital, and she went through months of rehabilitation to regain her physical strength again. So Oprah invited her to the show, and Oprah asked her, "How have you managed to live since that day? This horrible man, he ruined your life." And this woman wisely responded, "I'm sorry, Oprah, I have to disagree with you. He ruined one day of my life. What I did with that information on the following day, that was completely up to me." Isn't that wisdom? So when we hold grudges against someone, we are just re-harming ourselves. So it begs the question, how can then we forget something bad that happened to us? Well, this is a theory of how memory works. Memory have values, just like things have values. If you buy a watch on a mall, it has a relative value. If you buy the same watch in the airport, it has a different value. If you go to Chinatown in New York, it definitely has another relative value. The watch does not have an absolute value, but a relative value. It's a value that we give to the watch. That's how memories are. Memories, they have value. If I value too much a memory that has taken place with me, then that memory has full control of my emotions. And it would be so wonderful, it would be so wise if we gave the right memories the good emotional value. Let's go back here a little to the birthday individual. It's incredible how much we value the negative. Let's say a person has a birthday. They invite 50 people to their birthday. 49 individuals will come with a gift and say, "Thank you so much for inviting me. The food was great. I love the music. Thank you. I had so much fun." Out of those 50 guests, one comes to the birthday person and says, "What a waste of my time. Didn't bring any gift." And says, "Which restaurant you ordered this food from? It was horrible. And this DJ, he's stuck in the 20s. Doesn't he realize we're in a millennium right now?" On the following day, who will the birthday person remember? Who will the birthday person remember? That single individual. And the question is, how in the world the opinion of one person can be stronger than the opinion of 49 people? Who is valuing what? We are. And we are deliberately making a choice to give emotional value to this sick individual, instead of considering the all 49 good opinions about the birthday party. It's amazing how much we value negativity, how much power we give to people who don't want our well-being. And it's something that we do because most of the time we cannot shut someone's mouth so we won't hear their criticism, their negativity towards us. We're the ones who are making the choice to value the negativity. There are many things to consider here. One, maybe this individual is just envy. Maybe that individual never had a birthday party to himself. What you are experiencing as a birthday person, this is what he wished for his entire life. And never, ever, someone even called him to say happy birthday on his birthday. So when he attends anyone's birthday, the first thing that comes to his mind is his own unhappiness. Seeing other people's happiness intensifies his perception of his own unhappiness. Envy people are not envy because they're evil. It's a natural emotion. They want what you have. And chances are, if we were on their place, we will probably experience the same exact emotion. We want to be loved. We want people to cherish our birthday. It's very common. So that negativity that came out of him was nothing but his way of expressing how sad he is that nobody remembers his birthday. I don't agree with the behavior. But by understanding the behavior, by comprehending, that begets compassion. And when you have compassion, you have understanding why the individual behaves the way he does, that soothes your heart. Because you put yourself in their place and you would say, well, I'll probably do the same. How sad it is not to be remembered that is your birthday. He wants what I have. He's not evil. He's just sick, emotionally sick. That gives room for forgiveness. So if someone has done something negative to you, not just saying, the cake is horrible or never bring your gift, but there are certain people that they really hurt us. They really know our Achilles heel. Yeah, you're giving me the Portuguese word for it. The Achilles heel. You guys know what the Achilles heel? You know, he was struck by an arrow, this warrior, and when the arrow hit his heel, then he was done. He was able to be killed. So what that means, we all have a weak point. So people who hate us, they study us to know our weak points, and they hit us hard. How can we do? What can we do to forgive someone like that? Or at least forget what they have done? Well, I already said that we're not going to develop amnesia. But the goal here is to take the emotion out of that negative experience. We're going to devalue the emotion we gave to that experience. And how? Well, the technique comes from this psychologist of the spiritual world, Joanna of Angeles. And what she teaches to us is thought substitution. What is thought substitution? Whenever a negative thought comes to our mind, we're going to substitute for a positive thought. If a negative memory comes to our mind, we immediately will substitute that negative memory by something positive. One of the things that people do when they have a negative memory, they sit there and they think about the details of what took place. The clothes they were wearing, the temperature in the room, who was there. When we think of details of any memory, we are actually feeding that memory. You know, picture a tablespoon full of nutrients, and we are feeding that memory. That's what we're doing when we sit there and we recollect all the details of what took place. It's food to the memory. So when that thought pops into your mind, don't sit there and think about the details, what he was dressing and what she was wearing. Immediately substitute for something positive. And what would be something positive? Well, in this particular example, why not remember all the hugs and the gifts we received? You know, my friend came and she said something beautiful to me. She actually said, I look younger than I truly am. I have a friend of mine, when he attends birthday parties, he goes up to the birthday person and says, oh my God, you're 50? No, I can't believe this. And the person feels all flattered. I can't believe, 50? I assure you, I could thought that you were 65. So they say something nice to us, and we embrace that. You know, why not relive all the beautiful moments in our mind? Why not treasure the good things that took place? Regardless of how horrible our lives were, I know for a fact we had good moments. But our eyes were so closed to those moments that we didn't see them while they were happening. Our good friend, she presented us and she said in our introduction that we are a consultant for a hospice. What an excellent place to learn about human behavior. We sit and the reason why they're there is because they recently lost someone very dear to them. Imagine the pain that someone goes through when they lose someone that they were together for 50 years, 65 years. Invariably, the man would say things like this, because every 16 weeks we change and it's a new group. And so we get new men all the time and new women. Invariably, the man would say something like this. Now that she's gone, I can't believe how much work there is in the house. I have to do everything by myself now. I had no idea laundry was that difficult. And vacuum cleaning. That machine weighs 100 pounds after 20 minutes of moving it around. And then they say, I wish I was more grateful to the things that she did. Here comes the regret. What is regret? When we experience pain for not doing good things. Being grateful is a way to recognize how important the work of the other person is to us. It is so good to hear someone saying, thank you, isn't it? Women, I'm giving you a chance to complain, and it's a chance of a lifetime. Isn't it awesome to hear, thank you? Yes. I am not affirming here that these are tasks exclusively for women. But when a woman cooks and she brings the food to her husband, and he just sits there and takes the food like nothing happened, isn't that frustrating? Don't we want to hear, oh, this tastes so good. I love it. Thank you so much. Isn't it good to hear? They're not going to do it. You guys are so weak. I'm giving you here a chance to complain publicly. How wonderful it is to hear thank you. Isn't it good to hear thank you? Yes or no, women? Yes. I didn't hear you. Yes. Too weak. Yes. So men around the room, we got the message. Some men would say, well, the reason I don't say thank you is because she already knows I'm thankful. Oh, come on. Will your tongue fall out of your mouth if you say thank you? You know, there is a story of this couple. He was in a hospital because he had an artery accident. He had a stroke. And when he woke up from the stroke, he opened up his eyes, and the first person that he saw was his wife. So he made so much effort, and she understood. Come closer. And she did. And he said, I remember when we started going out, I was 20 years old. And then I had this car accident. I loved my car, but I totaled the car. And there you were. I remember I was 25 years old. I loved my job, but a different company bought our company and they fired me. And when that happened, there you were. You know, when I was 30 years old, I loved my mother and she passed away. There you were. At 40 years old, I lost my father. There you were. Remember when I had that accident at 47, I broke both of my legs? There you were. And now that I'm here, almost dying in this bad hospital, here you are. So I conclude, woman, you only brought me bad luck. What an ungrateful individual. So we substitute negative memory by positive one. Why not remember the good things that happened to us? Now, when we practice thought substitution, if you have conserved this negative memory, this disturbing emotion for a long time, by practicing thought substitution, it will not disappear on the following day by one practice substitution. This is hard work that a pill cannot make the job. A psychologist cannot do it for you. Only one person can, and that person is you. Even your spiritual benefactor, this highly evolved entity who is responsible for your well-being, for your mission to help you grow, cannot do for you what is your job. You know, people try to lose weight They restrain from eating what they like. Then they join a gym, especially January, February. Then they give free money to the gym for the rest of the year. All this to lose weight. If we think that's hard work, our mental work, it's way harder. This thought substitution requires so much effort from one. So the negative memory will not lose its value in 1 week of thought substitution. It will slowly but constantly, with our own effort, lose its value. So if something happened to me yesterday, I practiced the thought substitution. And then for a week, 2 weeks, a month, 6 months, it gets to a point that I will look at the individual who harmed me. I remember what took place, but emotionally, it doesn't bother me at all. With thought substitution, it doesn't mean I will develop amnesia. It means I would not feel disturbed by seeing the other individual. If the memory pops into my mind, it has no emotional value. I overcame. I was my own therapist by practicing thought substitution. Now, this is not magic. Let me reframe that. It's hard mental work. It's worse than going to the gym because we need discipline in our mind. And since in our mind is where we exercise complete freedom of thought, only us can decide what we want to choose to think. For our own well-being, we're doing this for us, to conserve the positive thought. And that positive thought will produce the well-being. If it works so well with the negative, if I remember something negative and I experience all the emotions again of what they have done to me, why not re-experience all the emotion again? A kiss, a hug, a gift, words of kindness. If I repeat them in my mind, why not re-experience that sensation again of laughter, of happiness, of peace? Who has to do that? We have. No one can do that for us. Fourth misconception of what forgiveness is. People believe that forgiveness is for the other person. When I forgive you, I'm doing something for you. That's a gigantic misconception. If I forgive a thief will continue to steal from other people. That's what thieves do. That's what a thief do. They steal. If I forgive someone who betrayed me, they will continue betraying other people. With my forgiveness, I am not changing the other person. I am bettering the quality of my life. William Shakespeare had a beautiful sentence that represented so well what happens when we don't forgive someone. He said, when you hate someone, you drink the poison expecting your enemy to die. And now there are modern neurological research that finally found very small arteries, capillaries. Capillaries are blood vessels. They are so thin. If we connect our entire circulatory system together, it can actually go around the world. That's how thin these capillaries are. Each of our cells are fed with nutrients. How do they get there? Well, by capillaries. And they found capillaries that connect our immune system with our brain. And what that means is that what we think have an impact on our immune system. If we choose to harbor these strong emotions, They will somatize. What does somatize mean? Soma means body. The emotions will convert to physical disturbances. And as a result, the individual gets sick. So the individual that got sick, who did it to him or her? They did it to themselves. By resentfulness, by feeling over and over again that pain. So let's do a recap. First, forgiveness is not to condone the behavior. Go ahead, repeat. Would you please do as if you are alive in your body? To forgive is not to condone the behavior. To forgive, it's not to absolve. And this is a technique just to wake you guys up. It's hard to be sitting for an hour. It's a way for me to keep you alert. Third, forgiveness is not to forget.
Forgiveness is not to forget.
And forgiveness is not for the other person.
Forgiveness is not for the other person.
You know, it's not for the perpetrator. He or she will continue to be who they are. So then, now that we are clear on what forgiveness is not, what is then forgiveness? Forgiveness is a means by which we set ourselves free from the prison of hatred. Because wherever I go, if I hate someone, I take that customized prison with me. I could be in Hawaii, in a 5-star hotel, with pristine beaches and perfect blue skies, and I am not feeling the joy at all. And why? Because whoever did something to me are in control of me. And who gave that person control of me? I did. So to forgive is to set myself free from the prison of hatred. So since the lecture is entitled The Power of Forgiveness, what's the power of forgiveness? It liberates us from the prison of hatred. The forgiveness is not for the perpetrator, is for us. Now Christ, who was an individual and still is, very much spoken yet very little understood, said that we should love our enemies. Love here, it's not the emotion that we experience for a caring friend, someone that we can trust. Loving our enemy is an action. Because we have this spiritual awareness to better ourselves and to protect us, to produce our emotional well-being, I will pray for my enemies. And why? Because if I don't pray for my enemies, if I hate those who hate me, we are in sync. Our mental waves are connected. And that individual could be in Japan, and yet he is in control of me because we are in sync. We have the affinity. We have affinity. What's affinity? Like that likes like. So we are in sync. He hates me, I hate him. Therefore, I control him, he controls me. If I make a prayer to someone who hates me, if I send them thoughts of love, I know what you did to me, I don't agree with you, but whatever is going on with you, I wish life brings you awareness. I wish you open up your eyes before you hurt other people. Because I feel very sorry for you in the sense that you don't know how much debt you are acquiring to yourself. And then we imagine the individual bathed in light. And now we have changed our mental pattern. We are vibrating differently. And even if that individual is sending me vibrations of hatred, His hatred cannot affect me. And that's because I am in sync with highly evolved spirits. I am in sync with peace and love. And those are incompatible. Love and hatred. So I am not experiencing the emotion of love. I am acting with love out of a spiritual awareness that I must do it wherever I can for my well-being, and that I also hurt other people who have forgiven me. So now it's my job to forgive others. Here in the U.S., there is a beautiful story of forgiveness that took place back in 1995. In 1993, in Waco, Texas, there was a religious compound which housed men and women and children. And in this compound, the local police became alarmed because they were arming themselves. Lots of guns, machine guns, and rifles. And they started to become very worried, and conversations took place in order for them to disarm, and they resisted. And they wouldn't allow anyone to come in. And those who could come out complained of what was going on inside that compound. But it got a point of the negotiations that they say enough is enough. And the place was burned. Children died in the process. And amongst those who were in that compound, there was a young man who went to U.S. Army. And he came out so full of hatred, what his own government did to him, that he planned a revenge. His name, Team McVie. So within a year, what he did, he loaded this van that he rented full of bombs, and he parked in front of a federal building. What's a federal building? All of you guys know, you're here in Maryland. And that van blew up, taking part of the building down. And there were a kindergarten inside that federal building. Many children died. It became known as the Oklahoma City bombing. The axle of the van did not incinerate it. So they found the axle, and every axle of every car carries with it its VIN number, the vehicle identification number. So they traced, and with less than 24 hours, they were able to capture Team McVie. And obviously, the question, why did you do this? And I was seeking revenge for what happened in Waco, Texas. In that building worked many people, including this young woman. Her name was Julio Welk. She always wanted to be a translator, so she went to different countries, learned different languages, and she was there working as a translator. Every morning at 11:30, she used to call her father so they could go out for lunch together. And that day, Mr. Bud Welk was waiting for his daughter's call, Julia Welk, and that call never came through. He started wondering what happened. She always calls me at 11:30. So just to kill time, he turned the TV on, and there he saw the building down. Immediately, he ran out there to see what was going on. And when somebody dies, the person goes through this roller coaster of emotions. If you ask them, how do you feel? They cannot even describe what they're feeling. And he said that when they brought him out, Team McVie, on the following days, and he was in front of the court system, he said that he wanted to purchase himself a rifle and stand from a building where he could shoot Team McVie down out of revenge. But he couldn't because he was so well protected. They put bullet vests on these individuals so they're not killed, and the case can go on. So his coping mechanism, which is not a way of coping to anything, it's one of the most dangerous things that one can do, which is to start drinking to forget our problems. It's always dangerous. It's never a solution to anything. Working in the jail system for 12 years, I see the direct result of alcohol drinking causes in people. In a blink of a second, you lose your entire life. It's a disgrace. And I know for a fact that no one goes out there, they have a drink, they get drunk, and they say to themselves, now that I'm drunk and I'm driving my car, let me find someone to kill with my car. I know that's not what they're thinking. Yet they are creating the conditions for that to happen. And they do it. When it happens, what else did you expect it? You're drinking and you're driving. You're creating the conditions for this to happen. So every day he went to the destruction site and he drank so much and cried for his daughter and drank before went to sleep. And he did this for a whole year. And one day he was sitting at a bar and suddenly he saw the father of Team McVie. And he had an insight. He said to himself, I could go around and cry to everybody that my daughter was killed. I'm in a lot of pain. But this man has to be in a greater pain because he's the father of the killer. You know what? Let me go and talk to him. So he called this man, arranged a day, and he actually went to McVie's father's home. He opened the door and he entered silently, sat on the living room table, and both of them just started staring at one another. And Bud Welk, he felt comfortable, so he looked around and he saw a picture of Team McVie when he was in high school. So he looked at McVie's father and said, he was a beautiful boy. And then the man said, indeed, he was. It was that situation back in 1993 that poisoned my son's heart. And this is what he did. I'm not excusing his behavior, but his heart was poisoned with revenge. Suddenly dawned to Bud Welk that he was actually poisoned with hatred as well. I'm not getting any better. All these hangovers. My daughter's not coming back. I have to do something different. So he stood up and McVie's father said, for the first time, someone has expressed sympathy to me. I haven't been able to cry since this took place. But now that you're here, I just feel the emotions coming up. So they hugged one another. Then Team McVie's sister came out. She started hugging and says, you know what, Bud? They're going to kill my brother. They're going to kill my brother. And they all three started crying. And after that commotion, that liberation of emotions, what in psychiatry it's called catharsis, Bud Welk said, I will do my best for your son not to be killed. I'm going to go out there and speak about forgiveness because by killing him, it will not bring anyone back. How can we teach people not to kill by killing? It's paradoxical. So on his way home, he had his own catharsis. He was crying so much, but this was a different kind of cry. He felt relieved. He entered Rome, sat down on a couch, and he felt himself floating. And he realized that by forgiving someone, you get closer to God. By hating someone, you distance yourself from peace, from God. So he went around the country and he preached about forgiveness. But they went ahead and killed McVie anyway through capital punishment. The interesting thing was, they set psychologists to follow up with the families of those who were seeking capital punishment and those who were not seeking capital punishment. And after 5 years, the families that sought capital punishment were not doing better at all. The families who opted for forgiveness were moving ahead with their lives. They were in a much better state of mind with themselves. what that is evidence of, that forgiveness doesn't repair what took place. It's a way of us moving forward. Because when we don't forgive, we're stuck in the past. We are not in the year of 2018. We are actually emotionally stuck in the year whatever took place. A woman that is abandoned on the altar. 20 years went by, she still remembers the altar and the dress and the humiliation. She's not in the year 2018. She's in the year 1998. To forgive is to give your life back, is to give you opportunity to experience happiness again. And that cannot be done by what the other person do to you. Even if they come to you, they fall down on their knees and say, please, I beg you, forgive me. And if we choose not to forgive, we'll continue re-experience the negative emotions. Set yourself free by forgiving others. We Spiritists, in conclusion, we Spiritists, we have a very powerful reason why we should forgive. In the Spirit's book, a book which was compiled by Allan Kardec, and the reason I am making very clear where the book came from, it's because our great Daniel will publish this on YouTube, and I'm always self-aware there could be people out there who never heard of this philosophy before, and they don't know where we're gathering the information from. So the Spirit's book was a book compiled, organized by a French educator named Allan Kardec. And he asked the entities of our history, of our past, very enlightened individuals, questions from all walks of life, from the sciences and from philosophy, psychology, religion, ethics, and these highly evolved beings provided the answer. We don't read the Spirit's book blindly, we rationalize with the content of the book to make sense of what it's saying to us. So in this book that is made up of 1,019 questions, there is the question 886 that it's related to this subject. Allan Kardec posed the following question. What is charity according to Jesus? A lot of people have their own definition of charity is. Maybe if you attend someone, if you go to someone's party and they really know that you like lemon juice, for them, charity is to give lemon juice to you. It's their personal definition of charity. People think that charity is almsgiving. You give money to people on the streets. They're begging money, you just give money. You're doing charitable work. And they limit the concept of charity. Even in the Spiritist movement, there are a lot of people who limit the concept of charity. They say that charity is to visit the elderly people. Well, that is an act of charity. But that kind of charity has a time of the week, a specific day. We visit the elderly Sunday at 10 o'clock in the morning. So a person attends a volunteer work and they're doing charity for an hour and a half. Maybe Abigail thinks that charity is to buy that wonderful popcorn for Julio. It is an act of charity because I love that popcorn. But charity has a broader meaning. And that meaning we find in the answer to this question 886. What is charity according to Christ? And it says, benevolence toward all. That's number one. It's not benevolence towards the people that like you. It's not benevolence towards people of your same ethnicity. It's not benevolence towards people of the same gender. It's not benevolence to the local people. Benevolence toward all, it's toward all. Because there's a lot of charity work out there, but it's for specific kind of groups. Maybe because they're from the same ethnicity. They do great work, but just for that ethnicity and not for the rest of the people. They are exclusive on their way of charity. Second is tolerance. Tolerance toward people's imperfection. So when I understand a difficult individual, that is an act of charity. By you understanding your mother-in-law, that's a wonderful work of tolerance, of charity. Difficult people are there to help us develop these virtues. To tolerate is to understand why they behave the way they do. And third is forgiveness of offenses. So when we forgive someone, that is an act of charity. Way harder than material charity. If I give alms to someone, I am transferring a value that doesn't belong to me. Our money, our clothes, our home does not belong to us. We are temporarily the managers of these things. Once we leave our body, we have to leave everything behind. This is why people's will read, I live this to my daughter. I live this to my son. I live this. The verb that they use is not give. I give this to my daughter. I give this to my son. I give this to my brother. They're not giving. They're living behind. And why is it? Well, that's because they cannot take with them. That's the reason they have to live, because that coffin does not come with drawers that we could put stuff in and we take it with us. So, to forgive is actually a higher kind of charity, because I'm not transferring a value that is temporarily under my management. When I forgive someone, I am truly giving of myself. God cannot forgive that person for me. And why? Well, that's because God is not against that individual. God does not forgive. And why? Well, that's because in order for someone to forgive, they must be against you to begin with. God is never against his own children that he knows are psychologically, spiritually immature children. So there is no need to forgive when you don't have any grudges against. This is why God doesn't forgive. So only I can forgive that other individual. This is why it becomes the greatest kind of charity one can provide, to forgive someone else. So do that for yourself. So in conclusion, in December, everyone is saying to one another, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. And the same individual is transitioning through time. All the emotional garbage of 2017, they brought to 2018. There is nothing new of the new year because they haven't changed the way they think. If that happens to be your case, give you the gift of forgiveness. Be charitable to you. So this can actually be truly a new year for you. This is the message that the highly evolved spirits bring to us through stories, different books, and through poems. And there is a particular poem written through the medium Chico Xavier. He received the poet Castro Alves. And in this poem, Castro Alves, he makes a synthesis of the Spiritist philosophy in many different ways when he analyzes the evolution of our soul. When he says, life is full of mysteries, encompassed of laws of beauty, which compels us to evolve. From God we emanate, multiple forms we reincarnate, longing for perfection and love. In humanity we seek the truth from many myths, yearning for peace and evolution. We cause in our path multiple lives and deaths, victims of our own disillusion. From the eternal struggle, building ourselves from the rubble, we learn ways to overcome. Despite the pain and misery, nevertheless, we grow ceaselessly from darkness to dawn. From the raindrop, a plant reaches the top, triumphant at last. The root appears to be gloom, but manure converts to perfume, transmutation at its best. The plant will be crowned with flowers all around, birds opera on their arrival. But flowers too shall pass, their martyrdom is a bless for the ground's revival. From nature we are taught, work hard, that's the law, all life is in movement. Sculpting through sacrifices, we'll carve blocks of vices, inside a stone lies a monument. Lessons from suffering change, pain will always remain until we change. Even narrows, tyrants without cease, under the law of reincarnation, through many trials and expiations, they too will be messengers of peace. Let no one be idle. Today's angel was yesterday's Adam. Perfection is everyone's destiny. Life's purpose, splendid. God's love, transcendent. Our school, universe's eternity. On earth from time to time, sublime beacons of light dissipate the shadows away. Their presence are felt forever in us they dwell, transforming night into day. Never in history a sacrifice, such as the one portrayed by Christ, transpire for the sake of truth. From the cross the message is heard, forgive all, always serve, your pain I will soothe. It's Socrates and the hemlock. It's Caesar's war being fought in flaming oppression and cruelty. It's Celine and his art, the imperialism of Bonaparte, spreading domination and tyranny. It's Dr. King's I Have a Dream. Lincoln's speeches, never seen, the incarnation of renovators. It's the embodiment of humility from the charitable Francis of Assisi, the gospel resuscitator. Blessed be the teachers who illuminate the seekers, inspiring virtues and light. Bliss is yours to conquer, although perfection is yonder. Your progress is very bright. In the entire universe, divine heavenly verses decree, march on. A celestial love awaits. Have hope, have faith toward the infinite to come. Thank you, God, for the blessing of speaking. And to you all, my friends, thank you for listening. If their backs can sustain. I'm so glad to see you.
We're going to open a few questions just for more 5 minutes. If anybody have a question, then we'd like to address to Julio. But before we address the question, from the deep of my heart and in the name of the Spirit Society of Northbridge, I want to thank you so very much for this wonderful lecture that you brought to us. God bless you. And we hope to have you here more often. Once a year, it's not
Thank you so much.
Anybody to like to, yes, Leah?
I have many questions, but
We're going to have to repeat the question, if you don't mind, because you have the microphone.
Yes.
maybe just asking Julio if he can share with us, because he has experience with the jail system, with hospice, and maybe something that can enlighten us about the importance of self-forgiveness and letting the resentment.
Before I get to the answer, would you please stand up so you can stretch your backs? Let me see. Okay, it's right. Yeah, no, that one is behind. And mine's analog, so I didn't. Thank you. Thank you. We're good? Leah asked the following questions. How can one forgive oneself? Well, that is a whole lecture in itself. So I'll accept the invitation to come again on a second time for this year to elaborate on the answer to that question. When we forgive what we have done, we are not saying to ourselves, what I did is right. We are not absolving what we have done. What we're doing, we're giving a chance to repair what we have done. When I forgive what I did, it means I'm going to give myself a chance to be happy again by repairing what I did. If I did something negative to Abigail, for example, and Abigail moves to Japan. Why I keep using Japan? Because it's so far away. Now I feel sorry. I regret what I did. I feel guilty. And then I want to apologize to Abigail. But Abigail is nowhere to be found. Now, what I do now, that's where it comes the excellence of the concept of the action and reaction. If I do good to anyone that is equivalent of what I did to Abigail, my own consciousness will free me from guilt. Because most of the time, there are no one accusing us of what we did. There is only one person who accuses us of what we did. That person is us. It's our own consciousness. It's God with small d, small g in us. We know we did something wrong. So when we become aware of what we have done something wrong, we go through three processes. First, repentance. What is repentance? Realize I did something wrong. There are a lot of people who go through life without realizing what they did. What I did was normal. I was just protecting myself. I just returned to the individual what I received from that individual. But then that person goes through life, experienced the same kind of pain he delivered to someone, and that pain, that experience makes him think, oh my God, this is how he feels. This is how I made that person feel. That was wrong. That's repentance. Then here comes guilt. Why in the world I did it? And then I experience the process of expiation. I am removing the bad behavior out of myself by going through the pain. And we shouldn't hold on to guilt, because guilt can become very unproductive. It doesn't repair anything. This is where we need to jump into the third stage of this process, which is to actually repair what I did. If the person is not around for me to apologize, I will do something equivalent to another individual. Equivalent. What I mean by this, and let me use money to explain because it's easier to visualize. If I steal $1,000 from Abigail, and I want to return that money to Abigail, but Abigail is nowhere to be found. There are none of her relatives are around. How in the world can I repair this? Well, if I give that $1,000 to someone else, in a charity organization, I'm freeing myself from that guilty conscience because I did something good. Let's say I don't have the $1,000. Then I'm giving 10 here, 15 here, 20 here, and the sum of my positive actions will eventually erase me from my guilty conscience. In the words of the Apostle Peter, love covers the multitude of our sins. What are our sins? Mistakes that we have done. What is love? It's not the emotion. It's the action of doing good to others. Because that's what the word charity stands for. It was a word invented by Peter. Love in action. That's what charity is. That unfortunately nowadays was resumed into almsgiving. But it's the concept of benevolence towards all, tolerance to imperfections, and forgiveness of offenses. So we forgive ourselves by doing something equivalent to someone else on the positive side.
Thank you. Any more questions?
What that means is if I receive a negative action from you, and I hold resentfulness, now there is a need for me to forgive you. Why do I need to forgive you? Because I have grudges, resentfulness within me. I hate you. Then that creates the need for me to forgive you, to liberate myself. So forgiveness comes with the fact that I'm holding grudges. If you do something against me and I don't feel bothered at all, it doesn't provoke me, it doesn't cause me any pain, I completely oversee it, I don't even know that you did, well, why do I need to forgive you when I have nothing against you? God doesn't forgive because God is not against anyone. God is not holding any grudges or resentfulness. We, unfortunately, due to our history, our evolution, it was almost impossible for us not to, and I think I'm going to be creating a word here, anthropomorphize God. A concept of an anthropomorphic God. Anthro means man, morpho means form. We have created God in our image. In the Old Testament, we read that we were created in God's image. But as a matter of fact, what we have done is created God in our image. We hate people, and then we say God is a vengeful God. You know, we are very belligerent, and we say God is a God of armies. These are human passions and imperfections projected onto this supreme being that we have no idea what it is. But it's definitely not a he or a she. It's not a spirit. It's not energy. God is the supreme intelligence of the universe, the first cause of all things. But we don't know the nature of God. But God is not a human being with human flaws and human imperfections and human passions. There is no need to forgive when you're not holding any grudges. You're welcome.
Thank you again.
I am so thankful that you guys came.